I hope everybody is having a fantastic afternoon. This is Atmospheric Alex here with another tropical weather outlook and discussion for today. And we're also going to be doing a U.S. weather forecast at the end of the video for my friends out there, family, who are not going to be directly impacted by these tropical systems. Well, first things first, we're going to take a look at our National Hurricane Center's tropical weather outlook for the next 7 days in the Atlantic. And as you can see, I would just bask this all in right now. Tropical cyclone activity is not expected during the next 7 days. Alright, that's some great news, isn't it? Well, at least for now, it's good news. It looks like we'll see maybe a bit of a ramp up later on, maybe in a couple of weeks. There's just so much uncertainty that is still plaguing the models. And I'm just back here looking at the models thinking, what is going to happen? Because at this point, anything really could. But first, we're going to take a look at our current sea surface temperatures here. And my goodness, this is getting just out of hand, isn't it? We're just seeing very just warm, even hot sea surface temperatures here across the Northwest Caribbean into the Gulf of Mexico especially, where we're seeing temperatures between 30, 31, 32, even close to 33 degrees Celsius. This is indicating upper 80s to near low 90s that are still in effect across these areas. This is just outrageous at this point. And like I said in all my other videos, you better hope there isn't a tropical system that forms here and tracks up through these favorable conditions, because oh my goodness, that would lead to a ton of issues across the Gulf coastline. Now we're going to take a look at our ocean heat content values, which I really don't want to look at right now. This is just ridiculous. And I just want to tell you all, ocean heat content is essentially the measure of how far down these very warm waters go in the ocean, and essentially how much energy is stored. And right now, we're talking about a bunch of maxed out values here in the Caribbean. This is just outrageous. We're even seeing some of it in the Gulf as well, some of these Eddies loop currents. But we're just seeing a large swath of 175 plus here across the Caribbean. This has the potential to cause significant issues later in the season, depending on if storms track through there. Even if there's just one, that's all it takes. Remember from previous seasons like 2022, all it took was Ian to cause absolute destruction across Florida. This is exactly why you need to be prepared and you need to keep your guard up, because this could get a little bit serious if we see development in these areas here. Well, speaking of the Gulf of Mexico and the Northwest Caribbean, here's your zoomed in view, and we have some hot sea surface temperatures here. I mean, my goodness, you can't get any hotter than this. And we're talking about ocean heat content values over 200 right now, upwards of even 220 in the Northwest Caribbean. And it's just, at this point, I've got no words. Just thank goodness there's nothing ongoing right now, because if there was, I could only imagine just the strength, the intensity of a system thriving in those conditions there. So, something to really keep your eyes on here for the rest of September. Now we're going to take a look at our European prediction system. We're looking at our cyclone locations. This is a product I really love to use, and some bigger names in the weather community like to use as well. Some bigger tropical weather enthusiasts in particular love to use. And I could definitely see why. You can see here tropical wave activity pouring off of Africa here, around 20 degrees north in latitude. Let me just straight up say this, it is way too far north for any of these systems to get organized here. But you are going to notice a marked shift as we head through time here, as we turn the clocks over to September, where we begin to see more wave activity here erupt across the main development region. Nothing too strong, though. That is something to note. A lot of dry air still in place. Some wind shear still ripping across there. And you can see a bit of a wave gets going here, north of the Leeward Islands here, some of the greater Antilles regions here. and this could, take off pretty quickly here, but it does look like from this particular ensemble model that if anything forms up here, it would stay out to sea, which would make sense because this is just way too far north to curve westward at this point in time. Now we have a different story when it comes to the GEFS model ensemble, but this in particular has a lot less continuity than the European prediction system here. So you're going to begin to see, some tropical waves forming across the Gulf, the Western Caribbean. This seems a little bit ludicrous. This is only 144 hours out. This probably won't happen. Our Atlantic is just not favorable yet for such storm development. You can see across the main development region a big explosion in tropical weather activity. And you could even see in some of your Gulf regions too. Yeah, take a look at all of these systems here across the MDR. You have some that track out to sea here, like your Ernesto tracks or traditional 2023 tracks here. And then you have honestly a pretty marked amount of development in the Gulf here that we really need to keep our eyes on. This is the only part of the Atlantic that has been relatively consistent on our GEFS model here, has had a little bit increased continuity for these areas, but I'm going to kind of backtrack here in time at some of our previous runs. So let's start all the way back, I don't know, let's just do the afternoon on the 21st. You could see tons of tropical activity here, really going west. When I saw this at first, I was like, oh my gosh, is this finally happening? And who could possibly be impacted? Well, let me just say this straight off the bat. This is going to change a lot as we continue looking run to run here. We need consistency, right? And consistency we do not have. This is, going more into your evening on the 21st run. What happened here? You have a giant hole where there's nothing now, and you have something in the Gulf. So this model here isn't really the most accurate right now. And then on the 22nd, overnight, just where is all your activity gone, right? Same song and dance here. And then we're talking about the afternoon yesterday. I was looking at this thinking, oh wow, well, it looks like this whole area is shut down. It looks like our anti-cyclone out here is not going to cooperate, and it's not going to be so flat curving systems out to sea. Oh, wait until the off run of the GEFS known as happy hour. This is what we like to call 18Z. And let's get a drum roll, please. Come on, this is just ridiculous. You have tons of major hurricane signals here, just absolutely rattling the Greater Antilles, Lesser Antilles, Florida getting on some of the action, Gulf Coast on some of the action, East Coast on some of the action. What just happened? This is what we like to call an off run of the GEFS model, which basically has no consistency, no continuity at all here. And as we go to 0Z, this was last night's model run, it's still there a little bit, but just a big downtrend in general. And going to this morning, okay, well, that was all fun, wasn't it? Still have a Greater Antilles threat, Lesser Antilles threat, but it looks a little bit more out to sea or maybe clipping the East Coast. So we still have a lot of variables in play that we need to watch, and we cannot make any really reasonable guesses yet as to what could happen with these tropical systems and where they could go. But as we take our attention off of all that, I want to direct your attention to the Central Pacific Ocean right now. And it sounds kind of weird to be talking about this, right? Go from the Atlantic to Central Pacific. What could possibly be happening there? Well, we have long-awaited tropical storm Hone. Whoa. I think a lot of you all in the weather community have heard that name before. Yeah. We're talking about Hone. We've been waiting 1,776 days for this thing to form, and it just so happens to impact Hawaii, it looks like. We're looking at tropical storm watches here in the Big Island here, but this system is expected to stay a bit further south here, and the latest model guidance has shifted it even further south. But we are expecting Hone to become a brief hurricane here as it passes to south of Hawaii and out of view here, so it's something to kind of be mindful of. I don't think this will be badly impactful, but just note that heavy rainfall, gusty winds, and high surf will definitely be expected. Well, you know the drill. When a system comes along, you must track it, and we're going to do that right here. So, we're looking at our HWRF model for Hone. Sounds crazy to be saying that name. We've been waiting so long for it. And you can see it tracking just to the south of Hawaii here, a decent distance, I will say, from the Big Island. You can see heavy rainfall here into the mountains here, and you can see your outer and inner banding staying offshore here. This is some great news for the Big Island. Still, I would expect maybe some tropical storm force winds along the southern tip of the Big Island here. And that would be, a bit of a concern. And it's also important to note that you're going to have some very strong winds here, funneling between the Big Island here and Maui, it looks like. This is a very classic area where you could see some tropical storm force winds due to a bit of a gap flow wind here. So just something to keep in mind, a little localized area there that is very wind prone. And this thing continues to skirt out of view of Hawaii and actually maintains intensity quite well before weakening as it nudges towards the West Pacific. Now, I know I might be going all over the place, but there is definitely something we should probably talk about here. This seems a little out of place. Why on earth am I looking in the West Pacific? Why in Pacific am I looking at Japan right now? Well, we have what's going to be Super Typhoon Shanshan here, which looks to make an approach to Japan as a Category 4 to even a Category 5 typhoon, and could hit an area that is really not used to seeing tropical weather impacts. And in fact, the last time this specific portion of Japan has seen impact of this magnitude, this will be a little bit of trivia for you all, was Super Typhoon Vera back in 1959. It has been 65 years since we have seen an impact of this magnitude. So, it is also important to note here just how many people live in this area, especially Kyoto here. This is probably going to be impacting upwards of 10 to even 20 million people here who need to stay high alert for this system. Very, very important indeed. And like I said, could it impact Japan here on Tuesday afternoon? Well, we might as well track this one as well, right? Looking at our HAPS-A model, and you can see this thing explosively intensifying on its approach to Japan, and just take a look at the system here in 916 millibars. This right here is a Category 5 typhoon on its approach. Very, very organized system with a lot of water spouts on the outer bands heading straight off into the mainland regions here that need to be on high alert. As we approach it a few more frames, boom, bam, right there. Look at all of that right there. This major typhoon heads straight into this inlet here, or near this inlet where we have tons of people who live. So, we could be talking about fairly, I hate to use this word in particular, fairly catastrophic impacts to that area, especially since, everything is built around sea level. They don't see much tropical activity. And you can see some strong water spout and tornado potential inland here into Japan. Another thing they are not used to. So, quite a once in a potential lifetime event here for Japan. They really need to monitor this closely. Alright, with all that aside, it's time to look at our more US weather forecasting, type of the video here. We're looking at our temperature outlook here. Very hot conditions still persist here in the southern US, southern plains I should say, and we still see relatively cool nights here across the Northeast. You can honestly take that. I'm sure you're very happy, very thankful you're seeing this right now. I know I certainly am as well. And you can see heat really begins to build back in over the plains. Good grief, look at that. Nearly 115 degrees on Sunday. It looks like, was that across Omaha, Nebraska there. Goodness, I'm just glad I don't have to experience that here, but just for those of you who are in the central Great Plains here, please do not stay outside for too long. You need to be very cautious. You need to drink a lot of water and find shade as much as possible if you have to be outside. And this heat continues, big ol' heat wave here. and it even starts to move a little bit further east. I actually didn't even notice this at first. Take a look at that heat spraying into the southeast here. Talk about temperatures probably in the mid-90s. This model blows it way out of the water a lot of the time. It likes to dry things out a lot as well. So seeing around 110 in Memphis would be a little outrageous, but certainly not off the cards. This is summertime after all. Well, heat continues to build, and good grief. This could honestly break a few records. I actually, like I said, did not realize the impacts of this. This could get a little bit crazy here. And yeah, just continues on through. Seeing some temperatures possibly cracking 100 in the southeast here. And we're talking about states, Arkansas, Mississippi, portions of Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. I mean, the whole 9 yards at this point is going to be seeing excessive, possibly even some record-breaking heat. We'll just have to wait and see, though. Well, your precipitation outlook looks interesting as well. This is your GEFS model, and I just didn't want to show the original GFS because I don't want you taking precipitation for granted across localized areas. So this is to prevent confusion. You do realize here a fairly large severe weather event that's going to be traveling here through, it looks like, portions of North Dakota, Minnesota, South Dakota. They could definitely see some severe weather upcoming Sunday, so do please monitor that as well. And we could just see, not much rainfall here going on until it looks like probably maybe towards the end of next week. We're talking about an increased chance of rainfall here across basically the whole eastern U.S. Your pop-up thunderstorm potential will rise again. And we even could sneak in strong, maybe severe storms. I don't really want to say much about that yet, but just kind of keep in mind about that. We'll continue to watch this through. This pushes off more to the southeast, and we see a bit of a stalled frontal boundary here that begins to set up here, across portions of the deep southeast, most likely. Some rain trickling further northwestward as well into the Appalachian Mountain region. And then from there, it's definitely going to be a southeast dominated, probably a wet pattern as well. It looks like most of the southeast, so if you do need a bit of rain, don't worry, I think it'll be coming your way in no time. And anyways, thank you all so much for tuning into today's video. If you did enjoy, please be sure to smash that like button if you did enjoy, and please be sure to share with friends and family, and even subscribe to my little corner of the weather community. Hope you all enjoyed the video about, some give or take across the Atlantic. It's not budging too much right now. We'll see what happens in the future. And of course, if anything significant does change, I will let you all know here on the Atmo Alex channel. That being said, have a great day, everyone, and stay weather aware.